under very, very suspicious circumstances. We all know really what happened. But Yulia is continuing the work. She famously did a tour in America before the election, and she was like, "You should vote for fascism." um, she was like, "You should not vote for fascism. I'm not going to say who you should vote for, but don't vote for fascism." So she did her part, but she continues to carry on that legacy and very famously supported him at all costs, including, not saying, "Hey, you should take this graphic design job instead of fighting the Russian government." So she's our figurehead and spiritual guide for tonight. And we need to support her work, but also learn from that. So that's going to key into the next segment. Welcome to Rebel Radio, everyone. We're here every other night at 8:30 p.m. And I do want to share another thing. I know it's a lot. Like I said, tonight's a busy episode. Surprised if we go to 10:30 tonight. I do want to just call out. It's very likely. So let me quickly go ahead and kick into something else. This was actually, speaking of Robert, this was inspired by something Robert had said to me. And so what I had done, and I actually had posted this in another forum, is I started to ask people, what. Let me back up and just read it to you. How's that sound? I'm just gonna read it to you. It will make more sense when I read it to you. Welcome to Rebel Radio, everyone. So this is a project that I just started, and it'll tell the story. So here we go. Turn down the Modest Mouse a little bit. All right, chapter 1, Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Ascendance. There is much to fear. We live in America at a time of great uncertainty when, if no one has told you yet, we are sliding backwards into a form of Christian nationalist eventual dictatorship. Fear abounds and grows in the streets. The journey to this place has encompassed multiple decades and multiple slides from the promise of the Gettysburg Address. There is much to fear in the streets, and whether that is far-right groups increasingly close to the federal government or masked men and women stealing people from the streets, men and women whose identity is unknown to us, who even national news coverage openly questions, who are these people? But we must also fear the constant onslaught of loss of our rights which once we thought were concrete and certain, rights which we almost certainly thought would never be taken, but which are eroding in front of us every single day. We must also fear for our friends and family as essential services are taken out or diminished. But I fear one thing more than all. It is not a president or a government or a secret police. I fear that I will not finish this project in time. And so it is with great urgency that I write this, Igniting Fascism in the Age of Its Ascendance. I have decades of experience as an activist and multiple wins under my belt. I need to share with you what I have learned to fundamentally shift and reshape what resistance in America looks like while we still have a chance, when and where we can. I've asked other experts to chime in and give you practical blueprints of advice. But just as quickly as I'm writing this, you must act. I will give you concrete steps to take and action items and challenges. You must do them, and you must do them quickly. A blueprint. This project is part of a historical documentation of the fall of democracy in America and part direct action, a sort of emergency field guide to saving democracy. We traditionally take this approach by dealing with our democracy from the top down, addressing or voting for the president, calling Congress when we are not satisfied. We simply do not have time for this anymore, and we have to act from the bottom up. While nothing in this guide, I promise you or encourage you to try, I'm getting passionate about this. While nothing in this guide I promise you or encourage you to try is illegal at the time of this writing, I cannot promise to you that in a year from now or 2 years from now, this government will not make forms of resistance or forms of speaking out against the state illegal. And so it is essential that we act quickly to protect democracy. This will not be an easy fight, and it's unlikely that we will win in the substantive forms that we might have imagined 5 or 10 years ago. At this phase, we are triaging to save what we can. From this blueprint and from a bottom-up reimagining of democracy, I believe if enough of us do this, we can fundamentally shape and change this country for the better. But this is not a promise. It's a hope. If you are part of this project, it's probably because you're one of thousands, if not millions of people who have asked me the same question. What do I do? People have become disillusioned with politicians and the traditional political structure. Many of you have taken to the streets in resistance. Some of you or your friends and family have been arrested in attempts to resist fascism and the growth of authoritarianism. The increasing power of the police state will make it difficult. Because of this, most people simply do not resist. This alone makes you different. This alone makes you special. This alone makes you uniquely patriotic. Moderators, you can go at it, by the way. I don't know what you're waiting for. Um, in November, from despair to action. In November 2024, with the election and rise of Donald J. Trump as President of the United States, I felt increasing despair and the realization that the United States and its previous forms of democracy, always under great strain, could essentially collapse. Initially, my plans were to begin to prepare to leave the United States to protect myself, my family, and our belief systems. But because all around me I saw people unwilling to acknowledge what was happening, I chose a different path. I began to create a series of short videos on TikTok. The premise of my videos was simple. I wanted to tell you stories of what would happen in America under the fall of democracy, but I realized simple warnings or lectures were not good enough. So I created vivid fictional narratives about life in America after the fall of democracy. I called it The Unraveling. My initial video got only 100 views, most of whom were previous friends or people who had followed my TikTok page, which had been long dormant since my previous political activism. But someone started what was always key and essential to every movement and every resistance. You see, people often get credit for being the first one to a movement or the first one to a protest to hold a sign, but that person is not the most essential person. The person that's most essential is the person who follows, the person who says, I've got your back, the person or next person or dozens of people, you all, by the way, who agree to join you in protest, the dozens of people who bail you out. The first protester is an essential patriot. The first follower is the key to any essential movement. And so after I posted my first TikTok video on The Unraveling, chronicling the future of life after the fall of democracy, an essential and important thing happened. A stranger, someone who I had never met, graced me with the kindness and encouragement of only 2 words: I'm in. I did not know at the time, but I needed to hear those words exactly at that moment. And the individual started the movement for me that became a viral internet sensation and helped me find my voice in this time of hopelessness. As enough people began to believe my stories would come true and actually began to see them forming and metastasizing in this new version of America, I was able to begin, thank you for saying that, I was able to begin to leverage that platform from The Unraveling to build on decades of previous civil engagement and activism. But I still always get the same question. What do I do? How do we stop it? Which, by the way, is why we have Rebel Radio. And so I built this for you to help guide you through this time of great uncertainty. I cannot provide you any certainty about what lies ahead for you, for us, for democracy, but I can give you an essential blueprint on how to reshape and restore democracy, not from the top down, but from the bottom up. These lessons are essential, and you must exercise and practice them immediately, or we will fail. And even though uncomfortable, I assume for most of us, you must bring others to this cause. This is how we ignite. This is how we save democracy. So when someone challenged me to make a blueprint on how to do this, Robert, all I had to say was, I'm in. So that is the sort of the output of that project. That's the output of it. What we're doing, chronicling Rebel Radio, our activism steps into Ignite, a guide for resisting fascism. A guide to resisting fascism in the age of its descendants, which I think is going to be really fun. So I also think that was a really good